start the meeting right now. I wish to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples. Tumtumewaitin, or Balcarra, is home to an ancestral village of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. We are thankful to conduct our work within their territory. And at this point, I'm going to just ask Lorna to make a very quick statement, if she could.
Yes, Your Worship. Thursday, September 30th, 2021 marks the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The day honors the lost children and survivors of residential schools, their families, and communities. The creation of this federal statutory holiday was through legislative amendments made by Parliament. The village office and other municipal offices will be closed in recognition of this day.
Thank you very much, Lorna. And so at 7:03 p.m., I will call to order this meeting. And on 2.1, approval of the agenda for the regular council meeting, September 27, 2021. Councillor Wilder, are you moving that?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Councillor Snell. So we have it moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll look to call the question that the agenda for the regular council meeting, September 27, 2021 be approved as circulated. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I see that it carries in the affirmative, and I note that it's unanimous. So we're on to the adoption of the minutes, the regular council meeting of September 7th, 2021. Moved by Councillor
I'll move.
Wilder
Second.
and Councillor Drake. So that the minutes from the regular council meeting held September 7th, 2021 be adopted. Any discussion on that? Seeing no discussion, I'll look to call the question. All those in favor of adoption?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll note that,
Have we lost Carolina?
No.
Councillor Clark?
I just saw the door close.
I'm very sorry. It's because I have a few dogs here that are not behaving the best. So my apologies. I'm back now.
I was going to say you're in good company. Would you like to register a vote on the adoption of the minutes?
Yes, in favor.
Okay, good.
Thank
So
you.
then I can note that the affirmatives carry and it's unanimous. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Clark and I were having some dog issues separately today. Okay, delegations and presentations, no items. And then for reports, Lorna, I'm going to ask you at this point if you would be kind enough to outline the next report.
Yes, Your Worship. The Managing Trees, Views, and Landscapes bylaw number 589 has had first reading. Recommendations for amendments were made by Council at the last council meeting. And I would recommend that the amendments that are highlighted in yellow in the bylaw attached to the agenda be approved. And then if that takes place, the bylaw will then be amended as approved.
Okay, good. So the first one we're on is report dated September 27, 2021 regarding managing trees, views, and landscapes bylaw number 589, 2021, moved by Councillor and then seconded by that the amendments outlined in yellow on managing trees, views, and landscapes bylaw number 589, 2021 proposed by Councillor Drake be approved. So on that one, a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Clark moving. Thank you very much. Councillor Wilder seconding. So it's on the floor for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. So I guess my question will be to Lorna through the chair.
Yes.
So Lorna, so let's say I
I did an application last year and I want to retrim this year. Could you walk me through the process of the retrimming the following year, please?
Yes, the people, the residents who would be wishing to retrim, they would need to submit a request to the village hall for consideration. That's the only way that we could possibly keep track of what trees are being trimmed.
Okay, perfect. So, so in this case, it would be just a retrimming, so we wouldn't need the feedback from other residents, right? Because you already would do that the year before. Okay, so this will be overlooked by staff. I would like to propose an amendment. I don't think, first I'll say, you know, my position on it. I don't think we should do free of charge. The reason why I don't think that, it's because for the retrimming, it's because, you know, people that carry business license and, you know, dock applications and in the docks, we have to pay a fee for the docks every year when it's on municipal land. I think this is only fair to keep the fee. I don't think, you know, because you could run into a situation that the person pays $200 one year and then trims the tree for the next 10 years without paying anything, even though it would be fair, I guess, in my opinion, taking a look at this again. And that, you know, there will always have to be staff involved. So we'll take some of the staff time. So, so I'm going to put an amendment if we'll see if I get a second, but I'll put an amendment to keep the fee.
Okay.
So, or actually the amendment will be, I'm sorry, Mayor Ross, would be under item 8.4 for no additional. So just to take it out for no additional charge. So you may reapply to prune the same tree on an annual basis. And then take out for no additional charge.
So your amendment would remove for no additional charge. So you've moved that, and I'll look right now to seek a second for that. Councilor Walder. Okay, so the amendment is in order and it's on the floor right now for discussion, debate, and then finally a vote. Okay, so Councilor Clark, your amendment. So
yes,
you want to speak? You spoke
a little more.
Yeah, but you're welcome to speak a bit more if you'd like.
Sure, Mayor Ross. So where I'm coming from, I see, you know, we're a small village. We have very few staff. We have a full plate of things that we need. Hopefully we will get accomplished by the end of our term. And staff has a lot of work going on right now. So I think it's fair for us to charge it, just like we do for business licenses every year and everything else, honestly, like the building inspector, like, you know, when you're doing any renovations or building something, we bill the applicant. So I don't think it's fair to just say, you know what, you pay $200 now, and then I don't know for how many years after that will be free of charge. And even though it's going to take staff time to go there, maybe take some pictures and see. So I just think it's financially, it's I believe it's fair because you know you're still using staff time. So
okay,
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
No, that's fair enough. And we'll go to we'll cast through council. Any members of council? Lisa, you have your hand up, and Bruce have your hand up. So we'll take Lisa. Would you like to speak?
Yep.
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I was actually going to bring that up myself. And also you have different neighbors that come in at different times. You don't always have consistent neighbors. So there will be a change, and it is staffing time. And this one of the, you know, our ability for fees for income in our village is usually just limited to taxing. And this is just another, it's like we have building, exactly what Councillor Clark said, you know, we have fees for you. It's a little cash cow thing, you know, it's a check of the box, and you have to pay your business license every year. You got to pay your port license fees every year, your dock fees every year, your HEA fees, your whatever. And it's an annual thing. And I see no difference in this. than any of the other fees that are charged on the bylaw. That's just my personal opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I'll go to Bruce Drake right now.
Thank you. I appreciate the argument. On the other hand, I can see, I mean, with all these issues, there's arguments on both sides. But I can see this. How would you distinguish then what we're proposing in 8.4 from an original application? And I mean, I just presented with this now. So I assume the difference is there's no need to talk to people you think are directly affected. You've already got approval to do a particular trimming, but you simply have to pay a $200 fee in this case to bring the tree, I take it, or shrub into the condition you got approval for in a previous year. Am I correct?
So let's find out the correctness from going to Lorna, please.
Yes, I believe that is the correct process. As stated by Councillor Drake.
Yeah, I guess if I could just comment, I mean, these things, you can go on to these things forever, but I mean, so let's take the worst case scenario where somebody trims the tree in accordance with a permit, and now they want to cut more. So I think we ought to make it clear that this is in accordance with the original application. We note that you need to submit that, but I think it should be clear that if you're going to do something other than what was in the original application in these cases, you should make a new application. If I'm going to cut more of the tree down, more of the limbs off, substantially more, then that is basically a new application, in my opinion. So I'm going to suggest personally, I would reduce the fee, like cut it in half. I don't mind having a fee, but I'd make it half the price because you've already had approval for this. You've gone through the process, but I would insert the line, trim the same trees in accordance with the original approval.
Okay, so
And
I'm
I would
just
have the fee. Yeah,
I'm gonna just check there that you're looking to amend the amendment, correct?
that is correct. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll look to get a seconder and then we'll work on the amendment to the amendment and then work our way back. So Councillor Clark, would you like to second that?
Yeah, I'll second that. I agree with Councillor Drake's suggestion of a half fee or like $50 cheaper or something. I think it makes sense to charge a bit less. And I agree with his amendment. Although, Bruce, I guess 8.5, wouldn't that cover a little bit of what you're saying, perhaps?
It does. Yeah, you're right. It addresses that, abuse of the process. It's just not clear to me if somebody cut off, I just think of argument 4 limbs on a tree and then they went back and cut 6 more the next year. I mean, obviously that's not the intention, but I just wouldn't want anybody to be confused. If they want to take substantially more, they have to get a permit that says that, and it isn't the old permit. So I would give people a break in maintaining a viewscape, and I assume it's a viewscape that they've been approved for and they've gone through the process. They should be able to maintain that. And therefore, that's why I'm just suggesting we do it in accordance with the original application.
So, sorry, just let me confirm. Can you repeat your amendment? Was your amendment to a half price or to a change in what the application looks like?
Yeah, I'm confused too.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, and okay, and it's a good point. I'm going to simply make the fee half. So I'm going to take out my wording I suggested because I think you'd really have to work hard to be confused about this because you are asked to present the original document. It gets stamped. That hardly authorizes you to do something different than what was in the original document. So I'm going to only suggest that in brackets, instead of for no additional charge, I would say at for half the fee that would apply to a new application.
Wouldn't that be under the fee bylaw, or can we state that there, like for half
good
price, or
question.
should we just because I think the amendment should be on the fee part of the bylaw.
Yeah, maybe Lorna can comment on that, which is more elegant.
That's what I was. Okay, go ahead, Lorna. Thank you, Bruce and Carolina. Lorna?
I think I might need Stuart to
Okay,
weigh in at this point because I'm just not sure.
okay, Stuart, could I get you to weigh in if you could, please?
I would say that it should be mentioned in this bylaw at half price, and then we also amend the fees and charges bylaw to reflect that and give it pricing.
Yeah, so my wording, my suggested wording is at half the fee applicable to a new application, because those fees could change over time. So you don't want to say it stays whatever it is. It stays at 1/2 whatever the fee structure is. And people would have to go to the fee structure to see what that amounted to.
So not to enter in debate, but let me just go from 8.4 and slip up to 8.3. So there, we don't give any monetary amount. We just say as per the fee bylaws. So I'll leave it at that, but if someone on this
Okay.
is, you see what I'm saying, that we seem to have a place that we name the fee,
Yeah,
and it's not in here, but in fairness, I'm just putting that out for discussion. It seems like the place to do the cost is in the fee bylaws.
Yeah, that's what I
Lorna?
was saying.
Yeah, sorry, Carolina, I cut you off, but Lorna, does that make sense that if we're not, we wouldn't have a solitary monetary fee in a place? Stuart,
and
why
we
don't
could
you
bring-
add on? You may have a different thought, but please come ahead.
Actually, I wanted to support what you're saying. All the pricing should be in the fees and charges. However, in 8.4,
Yep.
where it states no additional charge, that's the phrasing that would have to be modified just to say, whatever you guys want. If it's half the price or whatever, that's the part we would have to change.
Okay, in actually in 8.4. Or late in,
Correct.
okay,
And
and,
we could bring back that as an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw.
okay. So Bruce, where are you right now? Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
sorry, I'll wait for
Oh.
Lisa.
So I saw Lisa's hand going up, your head down. So Lisa, why don't we go to you and then to Bruce?
Thank you. I think it should just say, remove the words "for no additional fee" and strictly say, as per the fees and charges bylaw. And then we go to the fees and charges bylaw. We're going to make a line item there that says if it's a reapplication, the fee is 1/2 or 1/4 or 75%, because that can change every year.
Hello. It's okay, I'm just on an online meeting. What's going on?
Hi, Penny.
Penny,
You
need-
are
Hi,
not
Penny.
muted.
Hi,
You need to
Penny.
mute, Penny.
Thank you. That's all I have to say. I think it just should say as per the fees and charges bylaw, and it needs to be set out in there.
Okay, in 8.4.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got a couple amendments on the table. Do you want to,
I'm prepared to withdraw my amendment, Jamie, to make this a little less complex. I
Okay.
agree, as long as Stuart's comfortable, that just having the fees appear in the fees and charges bylaw is fine. I don't disagree with the proposal that we collect some fee for this sort of thing, but I do believe it should be notably less, and it should be much simpler, because I think that's what the committee had in mind, than the original application. So that can be taken care of when we look at the fees and charges.
okay, so let me do this together with everybody.
I was the seconder.
Right, so we're gonna do it with, it's on the table right now. So we're gonna ask for unanimous consent, and if everybody gives it, then that half cost is off the table. Do we have
Right.
unanimous consent?
Yes.
Yes,
favor?
John, are you shaking your head? Yes?
Yeah, I agree. It should be at a reduced fee.
Okay. So what we're trying to get unanimous consent is take the half price off right now, correct?
Okay, yep.
Okay, and I think you're shaking your head. So that's now off. And then we go back to the amendment.
The
which
original motion Oh, sorry, Mayor Ross.
No, that's
'Cause
okay. I think we're on the same thing, but let me
Yeah.
test it and then you can help me. There was an amendment there that had a period after basis and it was deleting for no additional charge, correct? And then I
Correct.
think, Lisa, did you want to suggest an amendment to that in regard to showing up in the fees and bylaw?
Yes, so it should say an application may reapply to prune or trim the same trees on an annual basis. For additional, it could still say for an additional charge as per the fee and charges bylaw.
Wow.
Okay,
You don't, well, I just don't think you need it.
You don't think we need to have the words for an additional cost, just put as per the fees and
No.
charges bylaw, because the fees and charges bylaw is going to set out what that fee is. It's going to say it's a reapplication. So for an additional, or sorry, my apologies, after the words on an annual basis, as per the fees and charges bylaw.
Councillor Clark, you're signaling with your hand. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. So my original motion, I moved the motion to take for no additional charge out of here. I think we should just take it out and leave the fees bylaw to rule the fee.
Okay,
I don't think we can, we didn't put, like you said yourself, Mayor Ross, we didn't put the fee, the $200 fee at 8.3. So it would make no sense to put a fee on 8.4, rather just delete for no additional charge and let the fee and charge bylaw take care of that.
okay. I think
Then the
that's a good-
person will see will be half off. I think that would be in policy wise. I think, if I'm reading a policy, that would be what makes the most sense to me.
So in terms of, that's good. And I think we got in an indication from Lorna, a good one. We're at the second reading, correct? If we go through on this? And you
Yes.
indicated that the fees and bylaws we could bring back to a subsequent meeting. So we wouldn't have to do that kind of managing it in this meeting. So if you want to go ahead with what you're proposing, Councillor Clark.
Yeah,
and we
so I
get a-
did.
Yep.
There was a second for the amendment. I think it was Councillor Wilder seconded, but the original amendment was for no additional charge. And then I think it would be appropriate to make another amendment. I don't know what Lorna thinks, but to make another amendment to the fees and bylaw charge to
Your
include a
worship.
half fee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can we just, if we hear from Lorna, she may be able to help us. Lorna, go
Perfect,
ahead,
yes.
please. And then we'll come back to you, please.
Yes, your worship, staff will do that. That
Yeah.
will be part of our process to follow up,
Okay.
for sure.
Is that all right with you, Councillor Clark? So if.
Absolutely. So I guess we're ready to vote if that's the case. So
Yeah, and
Thank
then staff will bring that back. So, do we have anybody from in fairness, anybody from we haven't gone out to the audience yet, so on this amendment. So I'm gonna just look to see if anybody quickly has anything they'd like to add. I'm not seeing anybody, so we'll go back to council and I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, can I ask what the motion is again before we just move on it, because it's gone back all times?
Yeah, that's more than fine. We heard it from Councillor Clark, but Lorna, could you go ahead?
Yes, your worship. So the motion was that on 8.4, the words "for no additional charge" will be removed.
And just leave it at that, okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so we're now able to proceed, correct? Okay, calling the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I look at, it carries in the affirmative and I called that unanimous. Okay,
What is it? Oh, here,
Clarification.
raise hand. Where are we?
let me just, if I can, we're gonna go on to the next one, but Charmaine, are you looking to speak?
Garrett wants to ask a question. Move over to the screen, Garrett.
Okay,
I just want to ask a question. I have to admit I've not read the proposed bylaw changes or introduction. And I've got a yard that's surrounded with hedges, laurel hedges. And is a hedge a tree?
Your worship, if
Oh,
Garrett
go-
wouldn't mind, he could send an email in and I could answer that question. It's pretty detailed to discuss in the middle of a.
Well, Jamie, you've got a laurel hedge in your yard.
Okay.
I've got them too. You need to cut them twice a year. So
Okay, so why don't I do this? I do have a laurel hedge and I'm substantially cutting it down each year for a variety of reasons. But what I would say is, we're coming back to this for a third reading in another meeting. So if
okay.
Lorna can send you that answer, and then you're welcome to come on at next meeting and make a contribution depending on that answer. And we will also share it with people. Lorna, correct, in the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Garrett, is that okay with you?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. They do seem like trees some days, don't they? Okay,
They
Okay.
become trees.
yeah. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. So I think there's a bit of confusion here. So I'm just gonna clarify. When we are talking about trees in your own property, this bylaw does not regulate trees on private property. This is a tree bylaw that only regulates municipal property. So so there's no rules really as of now for no fees for cutting trees in your own property, and no regulations for that either. Thank you. And if somebody could mute Charlene, I think. Yeah, Charmaine, if you're gonna, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, so we passed that amendment, and so we're now on the original motion, correct? Yes. So does someone want to, we've got a mover and seconder already for that original motion. So do we have any more discussion on the original motion? No? Okay, so then let's go ahead. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it carries and in the affirmative, and it's unanimous. All right, so we're on to B, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I'm looking for a mover and a seconder, please.
So
Councillor
moved.
Clark moving, and I've got Councillor Drake seconding.
Good.
Okay. Any discussion on that, Council?
I
That's
do have
okay.
just a quick question for clarity, please, Mayor Ross, if I may.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, so we are, we are voting on B. Okay, never mind. This is for next item. I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. No worries. So, and
No questions.
I looked up at the board and I don't see anybody in the audience looking to come on. So I'm going to come back to council and the questions on the table. I'm seeing no further discussion, so I'll call the question that managing trees used in landscapes by law number 589, 2021 be read a second time as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and I note that it carries in the affirmative and it's unanimous. Okay, so Carolina, I think you were, before you do it, Carolina, for the next part, I'm going to ask Lorna to just outline some things, and then you wanted to be in on this. So we're going to reserve you as the first speaker.
Yes, Your Worship. The Tree Committee, when they presented their final report, they had recommendations that didn't fall into the bylaw, and they are outlined in the motion in the report. And there are several different actions that need to be followed up on by staff. And part of the follow-up would be drafting letters to various bodies. And we would determine on occasion it would be better to draft a letter for the mayor's signature with the motion, or sometimes it's from staff to staff. And the items would be followed up by staff as time permits if council approves the motion.
Okay, thank you very much, Lorna. And our first speaker, Carolina Clark. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Ross. Thank you, Lorna, for bringing this back, and thanks, Stuart, to the chair for making the report. So just a clarification here. Well, first a comment. Yeah, I do think it's always better when there's a mayor's signature coming from council and mayor, because it's got a little bit more of a clout that way. Under item D, that staff write a letter to Metro Vancouver Parks regarding a policy for fuel management and removal of underbrush, dangerous trees, and etc. on parks land bordering the village in order to create a buffer zone. Is this letter going to be to ask them to draft a policy, or is asking if they have one? It's just not very clear to me.
Your worship, I would ask them if they have one, first of all.
Yep.
And then we would advise council, and if council wanted to perhaps ask them to draft one, then that could be the second part of it.
Good. Okay. Councillor Clark, does that
Yes.
answer?
Yeah, that answers. And for everything else, yeah, I'm good with that. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, good. Anybody else on council would like to comment on these? All right. Anybody in the audience who would like to comment? And I'm not seeing anybody, so let's come back and move that the report dated September 27, 2021 regarding tree committee recommendations moved by councillor and seconded by. So who do we have?
In second.
So you're moving it, Councillor Wilder? And
I thought Carolina moved it.
Yeah, I moved it.
okay, you're moving, and then we've got Councillor Wilder. So it's on for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and it carries in the affirmative, and I note that it's unanimous. Okay. And then I believe we're on to 5.3 right now. And Stuart, I'm going to ask if you will outline the next report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff asks that a quote from Sandpiper Contracting dated September 14th, 2021 for the mill and fill, patching and paving, at miscellaneous sites as identified by Public Works staff be approved in the amount of $23,200 plus GST. The purpose is to maintain the roads to a safe operational standard. Public Works staff has identified sections of pavement that need to be patched and repaired as we do on an ongoing basis. Funds have been budgeted in the 2021 operational and capital reserve. And in addition, 75% of the mill and fill patchwork is to be completed on MRN roads this year. Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much, Stuart, for your report on that. And I'll look for, if there is, a councillor to move that and a councillor to second it.
I'll
So-
gladly move that.
Okay, so Councillor Clark moving it, Councillor Drake seconding, it's on the floor. Any discussion from council? Okay, and I'll look to the audience and see if anybody in the audience has any comments on that. And I'm not seeing any comments, so I'm going to come back to council. Any further comments by council? Seeing one, I'll let Carolina Clark offer a comment. Please go ahead.
Always, sorry. I'll try to be quiet next one.
No. Don't worry about that.
Okay, so patching and paving, MRN and non-MRN. So would that include, you're saying that would be for Belcarra Bay, for the places that are marked on Belcarra Bay, is that correct? To the chair, to Stuart?
It is, this one is for patch holes in miscellaneous areas as identified by staff throughout the year. We'll circle and mark some areas. Most of it is on Bedwell Bay Road, 75%. If I misspoke, I apologize, as it's on MRN roads. And the other 30% is identified as being on non-MRN roads.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm excited to see, you know, I guess I'm excited every time I see something about roads here, because this is one of the things that I hear the most when I go to the doorstep. You know, when we were campaigning for elections last term, and it's one of the complaints that I hear the most around the village too, is like the holes and stuff. So I'm really excited about this. And I'll say this is one of the reasons why, you know, your taxes went up. At least in my view, it was for us to also put some money towards projects like this that really needs to be accomplished. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Clark. And I'll just add, I think that reaction during an election is happens every election. It happened in the last ones, and it happened in the most recent by-election. And people talked about the importance of roads, and I certainly talked about that. You know, in a village, you need to do the fundamentals, and one of them is roads. So I'm really pleased, and I'm grateful for staff for putting this on, and also for our financial person and our Chief Administrative Officer for tagging it in that budget shadowing for going forward, that one of the things we could do is start to look at these so we could get the work accomplished. So having said that, I'll just canvass and see if there's anybody else wants to say anything. If not, I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. And I note that it carries in the affirmative, and Lisa, you were positive on this too?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. So I'm going to call it unanimous on that. So thank you very much. And then Stuart, 5.4, if you could just outline this one, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff is asking to advertise a request for proposal for price quotes on paving that includes a full depth mill and fill and 75mm asphalt and regrading for Midden and Belcarra Bay Road from Midden to the three-way stop sign. Staff would then bring it back to council for consideration and approval for the capital works on Midden and Belcarra Bay Road. Midden was cited as being one of the highest priorities indicated for work within 2 years in the 2017 Urban Systems Report. The money for the Midden Belcarra Bay Road overlay has been budgeted for and is in the 2021 capital reserve of $130,000. Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much for that information, and we'll go to council first to see if there's any comment. Let's move it in second first. So before we do discussion, Councillor Drake moving, and
I'll move. Yeah, move for discussion. Yeah.
Okay, and Councillor Clark.
I'll second.
Okay, so it's okay. So Councillor Drake, do you want to reverse the order? Because when you say you're moving it for discussion, the intent is, if I can, let's see if do you know why I'm doing this?
Yes, and I accept that. Sure.
Okay, so Councillor Clark, would you like to move this motion? And then I believe Councillor Drake will second it and make the same comment. Is that all right? Okay, so Councillor.
Yes, I'll move the motion. Sorry, I was on
Okay,
mute.
And I will second for discussion.
Okay, good. So it's appropriately on the floor for discussion. Councillor Drake, you have your hand up, so why don't you go ahead, please?
Yeah, my only question is this: and I have no objection to the work taking place on Belcarra Bay Road. In fact, Belcarra Bay Road down and up to where the bus stop is located on Midden. No objection to that. My concern is that this council has not come to a conclusion as to what the future of Midden Road is. And should the future of Midden Road not require that it be paved, then I would be, I certainly wouldn't be supportive of doing the milling and repaving of it if we should take an avenue that doesn't require that. So I guess where I think we would have agreement, I'm happy to discuss it. I'm happy to lose a vote on this, but where I think we might have agreement would be in simply ask for the RFP and split it in two for the whole thing and for just up to the bus stop, which in other words is about 65% of that same amount of road.
Okay, so let me do this. You can do it by seriatim and split it up, but let me, before you decide to make that amendment, let me go to staff and ask them the question whether you can achieve what you want, which is essentially because this would get you quotes and it would get council quotes and it would get people in the community being aware of it, but it would not be binding. So it would then, I believe, Stuart, it would not be binding for action. It would be, it's moving to get information. But just let me clarify with Lorna and Stuart if I'm correct on my assessment. If I'm not, then I'll take care of that. Lorna?
Yes, your worship. I believe, but I think I should ask Stuart if we could split that into two RFPs.
Or, sorry, let me just, before we do that, the question I was posing, and Bruce is welcome to do it, but if we actually go out in an RFP, are we obligated then to spend it and use the money, or could we get those figures? Because those figures would then come and say, this is the work we're doing and this was the quote we have, and council would decide. So council at this point can do an RFP and not be obligated to do the work. I just want to know if I'm correct on that.
That's correct, your worship.
Okay, thank you. And Stuart, did you want to confirm that?
Yes, what Lorna has advised is definitely accurate. If I may just respond through the chair to Councillor Drake's comment.
Absolutely, go ahead, please.
You know, and first of all, of course, we can accommodate any of your council's needs. That's absolutely no problem. But I just would like to expand on, you know, our staff's reasoning. Because whether or not that road is opened up, it is still a municipal asset, that road, and it still needs to be maintained. In fact, quite often when the road is blocked off, it becomes in disrepair faster because the trees and everything else starts growing through it as it doesn't get that wear and tear from the pavement. In addition, whether or not the road gets becomes a through road is up to council's discretion. But I ask that be considered separately. This overlay is all part of our 5-year capital budgeting, and so we have multiple large items that are within the 5-year plan. And if we don't keep moving forward on some of these large projects, it all gets bottlenecked, to 4 or 5 years down the road. And this is an effort to really to keep our objectives moving with maintaining the roads.
Okay, Stuart, thank you very much for that. And I'm now going to go back to Councillor Drake, and you have, at least 2 things you can do, and it's free for you to do either one of them and maybe a third if you decide. Go ahead, please.
That's great. Thank you, Stuart, for the clarification. I mean, obviously, if we ultimately reopen the road, there's no question we want to repave that area. There are at least 2 other options, right? One is that we leave it closed, in which case the question is, do you need to do the same amount of maintenance? You're suggesting you probably do if it just remains as a cul-de-sac or an unopened road. And the third has been mentioned before, but was a much longer term possibility, would be considering closing off the road and seeing if Metro Vancouver would be prepared to do a land swap with us, which would give us an asset that would have some significant monetary value. Now, I'm not saying I'm in favor of any one of those 3. I'm just saying if we haven't made a decision on those, does that affect what we plan to do tonight? All I'm asking is that with the RFP, we get the proposal in 2 components for the whole thing has been proposed here, and just for the area up to the bus stop. Now, I understand, just comment, I expect the difference will be relatively minor for the simple reason that all your setup costs moving your staff, getting them on site, et cetera, is all going to be included in the first quote. Then to do the extra couple of 100 meters is probably a relatively minor expense, but I'd like to see both. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just go to staff for a quick answer on this. Do you, Councillor Drake raised that he wanted to split it, and he can do that by going to by going through Sarah Adam and splitting them. Does that need to happen for the quotes to come back? If it does, we'll move ahead on that, because Councillor Drake is sounding like he'd like that to occur. So should we be doing that for an RFP, separating them if we actually want two separate quotes? Stuart, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff can, modify the wording of the RFP to suit council's needs.
Okay, and you're good with that, Lorna?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so let me just canvass council. Would you like the quote to be picked up in two segments as outlined by Bruce Drake?
Yes, for me.
Yes. Councillor Wilder, yes. Councillor Snell, yes. Councillor Drake?
Yeah, yes,
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, John.
Yeah, all I was going to say was I think we obviously need to know what it would cost to do the whole thing. When the road was shut down in 2019, every reference to it being when it was shut was it was a very temporary measure, and it was already budgeted for repair in 2019, and $60,000 was put aside for that in 2019. They chose not to do it. Every memo that went out called it a temporary closure, and at this point in time, it is still a temporary closure, whilst we review the full cost of reopening it and doing it properly. Now, in the couple of years that it's been closed, we've had a chance to consider other things, but I think we should move ahead as if we're going to open it and get the proper price to do the job properly. And once we've got that price, we can then decide, what to do with it. Thank you.
Okay, and that's good. Let me just be clear. If you're fine with Bruce's request for staff to get it in two components, which would give you the overall cost, we need that now, because if not, I think Bruce is going to move a formal amendment. Are you
Yes.
comfortable with getting it in two segments, John?
I'm comfortable with that, providing we do know what it would cost to do the whole thing as originally intended, and as would have been done had the temporary closure ceased to be a temporary closure and the road reopened.
Okay, so I think I have, and I will add on that I'm supportive of two costs, and I'm going to go to Councillor Wilder. Councillor Wilder?
I am in favor as well, but just with one teeny weeny little clarification. Through the chair to Councillor Drake, you're saying to the bus stop, it's not a bus stop. The bus stop has moved over to Bedwell Bay Road. It's actually up to the three-way stop at the three-way corner of Bedwell Bay Road and Belcarra Bay Road. Are you good with that?
If I might clarify, no, I maybe didn't speak properly. I'm referring to the bus stop that is right adjacent to the park.
There's no bus stop there.
There's no bus stop.
Okay, the structure, the location, I guess what I would take, here's the scenario. If you decided to close that road and swap it with Metro Vancouver, you would not want to have paved the whole thing. It would become their property. However, you wouldn't give them the entire road. There's a requirement for separation from private properties, and we'd also want the turnaround space there for people in the village and parking for them. So my interest would be to see a quote that would take us up to the area where the crosswalk, where the small bridge is that takes you into the park.
The former bus stop.
Former bus stop, I would be happy with.
Okay,
and I have to
now I know what you're talking about.
And I have to say, I mean, John's comments are extremely useful. If in fact a majority of the council really isn't interested in looking at that differential, I can be pressed to go with the original proposal. But as it is now, I'd like to see both, and I don't think there's likely to be a huge difference, frankly.
Okay, so what I'm sensing right now, and if it's not there, let me know, and then I'll get you to move the amendment if you desire, or you can go with the other part. I believe we have 5 councillors who are fine with the quote being gained in essentially 2 segments. Correct?
I'm supportive of that.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
supportive of
and
that.
I'm
I'm okay
calling
with
it
that.
unanimous consent on that. So Right now, the motion's on the floor. And Lisa, would you like to talk again? You've got your hand up, or is that?
Oh, no, I'm good. Sorry. I forgot to
That's
put that little
okay.
fella
It's-
down. Sorry about that.
It's a very good club to be part of. And I'm gonna go, if I can right now, I'm gonna go to the audience, and I see Jim or Sherry Chisholm, and it looks like Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
Welcome.
Because I live right beside the Midden Road, it would just seem a shame to put any kind of money when we're trying to penny pinch at this time. Certainly, I'm pleased that everybody supports the two separate quotes. Midden Road, has worked fine for the period of time it's been closed. It's really just a parking lot, and to pour money in it for parking would seem a shame. So I'm all for just letting it stay the way it is and not put any more money into it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sherry, for your comment. And I'll look to see if there's anybody else in the audience with their hand up. And maybe Sherry, you're taking your hand down right now. So thank you very much for that. And we'll go back to council. We have a motion on the floor, and we'll look to see if we have any further discussion. And we'll get Lorna to maybe before we vote, because we're going to go to the vote, but if you could just read the motion that's on the floor for us.
Yes, your worship. The motion is that staff advertise a request for proposal for, I'm going to say, 2 price quotes on paving that includes full depth mill and fill and 75 millimeter asphalt regrading gravel base from Midden Road and Balcarra Bay Road from Midden Road to the 3-way stop. So I've just added the 2 price quotes.
Okay, good. Council, you're fine with what you've heard? So I'm going to look to call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I see that it carries in the affirmative and that it's unanimous. So thank you. Thank you, Stuart, for your work on that, and Lorna, and thank you for council and to the audience. And Stuart, you are up on number 5.5, please.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You're welcome.
Recommendation that council approve the resident parking only and permit parking only signs in place as a permanent policy for the Village Hall parking lot. At a regular meeting held on July 5th, 2021, council passed a motion that the lot at Village Hall be established as resident only parking and permit only parking until the end of September 2021. Staff now seeks direction from council. Some of the options include staff to keep the resident parking and permit parking only signs in place as a permanent policy, or B, remove the resident parking only signs and retain the policy as seasonal from June 1st to September 30th each year. Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm going to go to council, and I think we have 2 people that may want to start off. Carolina, or I got to look. Lisa, you won that one, and then followed up by Carolina. Go ahead. And Lisa and Carolina are our leads for council on the parking issues. So thank you very much both for your past work and your work going forward. Lisa, please.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to know what the reasoning was behind this. And I am going to just say I'm really not in favor of this. We always plan on having another public parking meeting with the residents. And until such time that that happens, I don't think that any further changes need to be made. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Lisa. Councillor Clark.
I want to fully support Councillor Wilder's comment. The way this is, I understand we have to come to a conclusion, but what we promised to the public is that we would get more of their feedback prior to deciding anything permanently. I will say that yeah, I'll probably suggest an amendment to this, but I'll hear what the rest of council has to say. Thank you.
And Councillor Drake, and you want to go ahead, please? Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you. I respect the extensive work that the two previous councillors who spoke have done on this issue of parking. I just would be curious as to what kind of feedback we had as a result of this temporary posting of the site. Number one, so I guess that's directed to Lorna and to through Lorna to Stuart. And secondly, I guess the question is to how much work we're asking staff to do to take down the signs. We're running into a time of year when I can't imagine there's much demand. And so I don't see why one couldn't extend this condition just to save staff the time of removing all the signs, and then address this after we do have a public meeting on the issue of parking. So I'll stop there and I guess just ask through the chair the question of staff as to how much pushback we got on removing the parking option.
Sure, and why don't we start with Lorna, and she can look to include Stuart as appropriate. Lorna, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. The pushback that we did receive, I would say, was primarily from people who have kayaked out of Valcara for a number of years, and they have used the Village Hall parking lot. We would give them permission if they were going up the arm and they were going to be away a couple of days, that if they left a note on their dash when they were returning, plus their contact information, that they could park their car there. And but I believe it was primarily put in place because that's what the residents wished, to have more parking, and so that's what how that request came through. But that's the pushback was, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 people who may have parked there throughout the summer.
And if I may, I mean, you can always issue a permit in those cases. As I recall the complaint, it had to do with some behavior down on the beach that it was felt was being supported by that parking there. It wasn't to do with people going out in kayaks. Anyway, and I appreciate it's very difficult to target this kind of thing, but I guess no, that's fine. That's sufficient information. So a few people were inconvenienced insofar as external parties who might want to use the area. And I'll leave that then, and my other comment that I wouldn't want to impose a lot of work on staff if we're going to end up putting them back up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll go to Councillor Snell now, please.
A simple question. I notice if parking is restricted to residents and people with permits, where do people park that have legitimate business with the village park that aren't residents or have a permit?
Through the
yes, go ahead,
Your Worship, we will issue permits for people who are conducting business in the village.
Okay, so they
temporary permits.
Okay, so if someone has an appointment from outside the village, if a lawyer from outside the village comes to see you and parks outside your office, you give them a temporary permit to park there, is that correct?
No, not particularly. We don't, if they're just here for an hour or two, and we don't have very many visitors right now because of COVID.
Okay.
But
right.
More, it would be for if business was being conducted elsewhere in the village at another address.
Okay.
And they were only going to be there for a while, we would give them a temporary permit.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Snell, and we'll go to Councillor Drake.
Look, I just couldn't resist the suggestion that Councillor Snell has raised, that if we had a lawyer stopping by, that we would give him the tickets for not getting a temporary permit at our hall. It strikes me as a wonderful example of why one would want to be careful in applying that policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilder, did you want to look to amend something to help us move forward?
No, I was gonna say something very similar. Seems to me more work for the village having the resident only parking there because they have to issue permits to everybody. And there are only 2 signs as far as I saw when I was there.
Okay.
So it's a matter of unbolting 2 little bolts on 2 signs and removing them. I believe until we have a public, I'm gonna go back to that one until we have a public hearing, which we promised our public for the last year or so. Till that time happens, I think that our temporary measure should just stay temporary.
So would you like to amend the last part of that policy? So staff to keep the resident only parking and permit only parking signs in place until the consultation has occurred with our village residents. Is that someone looking to?
I'm good to do
I'll
that.
move. Yeah,
Oh,
I'll
I'm
second.
sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, Carolina.
Yeah,
It's
sorry,
okay.
your
Okay.
worship, if I might just interject.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
the current motion is that the resident only parking signs are in place until the end of September. So that's next week. They would be removed.
So we're gonna choose that we can choose option 1 or option 2.
Yeah.
So there's no amendment needed. We just have choose one or the other.
Okay. So why don't we just, let's go ahead, Councillor Clark, you have a question on that.
Yeah, no, I do think we need an amendment because the option A is to keep it as it is permanently, right? And option B is to remove and retain the policy for seasonal. But what we're looking into is none. What we're looking into is keep status quo until consultation takes place. So that would be a new motion, that would be an amendment or just a.
No. Remove the resident only signs and retain the policy as seasonal from June 1 to September 30th. Which is what our current policy is.
We can go for that, but what I'm trying to say is that if we do a consultation with the public and the public decides and council decides during that meeting that we want to keep that closed year round, then you have to change the signs again. So that's why I'm suggesting an amendment to keep status quo until consultation takes place.
That's why, I mean, the amendment is someone else who's on the floor right now, but it seemed like that was being spoken about. So if that doesn't do it, let's find out what does. It may do it. Councillor Clark, you wanna, let's let Councillor Snell go first.
Yeah.
See what he has to say and then come back to you or others. Go ahead.
Yeah, I fear we're probably having a repeat of a conversation that took place in July the 5th this year, when the point was probably raised by Councillor Clark and Councillor Wilder that there was going to be a public meeting on parking, and if we look under the background that the parking lot and permit only parking until the end of September 2021, I think that that should hold, which was decided at that point in time. And if we're going to make any changes, make it after the consultation with the public, as Councillor Clark suggested. So the prohibition really goes through to the end of September until we then, which was the original intention. Is that correct?
Is that what you want to move, Councillor Clark?
Yes, I'll move the amendment. The amendment, no, it's actually not an amendment. I guess it's a new motion. Councillor Wilder has something to say, so I'll just wait for that.
Okay.
Do we even have to speak to this recommendation? I mean, if it's not voted on, then it just dies at the table, doesn't it? And then
You-
everything stays status quo.
No, there was a timeline on the original motion, which was September 30th. So
So the signs would be removed
Yeah.
on
Right.
September 30th or the next day, unless you
decide
on-
something else.
item A for now until a public meeting.
So there's an action in place in answer, Lisa. It's just if you want to vary that action or someone on council does. But why don't we do this? We said we'd return to Councillor Clark. If someone I think we just need to figure out how we're gonna handle. the
I
next
have an
item.
idea.
Perfect. Go.
If you vote on option A, I could move to amend as a permanent policy. You can just you can just read staff to keep the resident only parking signs in place. Until, and then I would amend to take out as a permanent policy and rather have it signs in place until consultation is completed.
Then why wouldn't you just choose B?
Well, I thought we went over this.
Okay.
Because
Well,
B, it will, yeah.
Can I
give it to
just
you.
interject for a second? I don't mind where we end up, but I just think we should end up. So let's do it the way we would do it. She, I believe, is moving an amendment. Let's check if there's a seconder. If not, that's off the table, which is fine, right? So does anybody on council want to second that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Go ahead. Back to Councillor Clark.
Yes, so the motion is moved and seconded. Staff to keep resident only parking staff to keep resident only parking and permit only parking signs in place until consultation is completed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Drake, you'd like to speak to this? Go ahead.
Thank you. This entire process is beginning to get a little bizarre, but yeah, I'm actually not in favor of that because there's no timeline on it. Frankly, I would rather go with B if that was the case. So I'm not going to vote in favor of this. I would go to option B. If you have we have a public consultation session and council makes another decision, you change the policy at any time. So we're not going to hit that point under option B. You won't hit that point till June 1. You'll take the signs down at any time we decide to put them back up. We could, and if we have a public consultation before next June, you can come to a different conclusion. So it's just, I just think it looks like a loose end if you left it as something that would wait for an indeterminate amount of time till you had a public consultation.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's my opinion, but I leave it in your capable hands, the chair, to move us through the votes.
Okay, well, we have you speaking against. Any other councillors want to enter into this? Councillor Wilder, go ahead.
I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Drake because until there's not a timeline, I'm not in favor of it. I'm going to stick with my option B.
Okay.
Okay, if I make a comment, Mayor Ross.
Yeah, sure.
It sounds good. We can go with option B, but what I'm trying to say is that if you vote for option B, it will be no longer status quo because the signs will be changed on September 30th. So sure, I'm okay to go with option B as well. But then be aware that the signs will be changed. So
2 signs.
Okay, well, that's fine. We've got a motion on the floor, so let's just either let's figure out how we do it. And if we're going with option B, if this one is defeated, then we'll move quickly to option B and we'll look for some people. So,
sounds good.
John, did you want to speak to this?
You're muted.
You're muted, my friend.
No, I got nothing further to add. Let's just get it done.
Okay, are you indicating you're gonna vote against?
No, I'll go with the majority on this one.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you, Carolina Clark. You were the
Defeated.
mover. That's okay. And so those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion does not carry or carries in the negative, so it's defeated. And we'll go now to someone like to move a motion out there?
I'll move option B.
Okay.
And I will second that.
Okay, good. Any discussion from council? Not seeing any. We're going to move to, sorry, was I too quick on that? No, good. Anybody in the audience? Not seeing anybody, will return. And we have motion B on the table. All those in favor, please raise your hand, and I know
Aye.
that it's unanimous. It's carried. And
We'll just
We
push
are-
for a public meeting before anytime soon.
yep, well, I think Lorna's ready to talk with you about that piece whenever. So thank you for your work on that. And
Thank you.
the mayor's report. And we're at 8:12, so we're making good progress even with all with all that. So okay. So
Can you imagine when we have to dedicate a whole meeting just to talk about that? There'll be lots of time.
we'll be good. We'll be good. Okay. I have a couple of things and Paula, you've got one, but not to, we'll just hold on that right now, Paula. So I just wanted to give you an update of some things from a mayor's perspective and from a village. Lorna and I attended on behalf of the village. We attended the UBCM. It was a week of Zoom meetings. I cannot share how much I enjoyed it, but it was a very positive meeting. And thank you for Lorna for all your work and the resolutions. UBCM did a very good job, and Lorna also did an outstanding job setting up some time with two cabinet ministers, Minister Eby and Minister Lisa Bear. So in terms of the resolutions, I really want to thank some of the village residents for being in touch and indicating a couple of resolutions that they felt were really important, and that was very, very helpful. And I think it shows good village interest, and I can pass on that those ones were supported and carried. And there was actually a lot of business done at the meeting. Our meeting, Lorna and I attended with Minister David Eby, and we wanted to talk to him about the sprinkler. And Bruce had done some very good work and provided outstanding briefing notes, but he had another obligation he could not miss. So Lorna and I met with Minister Eby, and she's welcome to add any comments, but I was very impressed with his staff, who we had spoken to before, and in particular with him to just kind of be able to work through a very complex issue and talk about it. And we got to the point where he indicated that he thought he understood the issue, that it was, he said, like government, when you really understand it, it can get complicated, right? But he came away asking his staff to be in touch with our staff, with Lorna, and that we would continue to look at it. So I don't want to raise expectations, but there was a key point about whether with affordability, they would simply outright reject it. And he indicated affordability is very important to the government he serves in, but in addition to, for him, and he believes his government, the issue around fire safety is important too. So we're not anywhere further, but I thought we had a very, very constructive conversation, very useful one. And so again, Lorna, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that summarizes it very well.
Okay,
Your Worship.
and the next step will happen with staff working with our staff, led by Lorna, and then we will look to update you when we can. The next one was with Minister Lisa Bear. So maybe we can put it up now. And I had met her. The Minister of Municipal Affairs had a number of meetings, and she brings in someone to another cabinet minister to work with. And I was on that meeting with Lorna, and I listened to Lisa Bear, and then I came back and said to Lorna, let's make sure at the UBCM we talk with her. And so she's actually been able to respond back to us, and she just outlines, and you'll see the two bullets, that there was a request for the ministry to assist with increased connectivity for homes in the area that don't have access to high-speed internet, and to provide additional information regarding the sale of a BC hydro tower in the area. And so we posed that to her because we were concerned about what had come to council before. And if you put it up a little bit, Paula, please just go up about 2 inches there. Perfect, good. So you'll see that they've come back and they thanked us for Lorna and I for sharing that, but they're happy to say that the staff in the connectivity division have already reached out to book time with your office to further discuss the areas that remain underserved and areas eligible for funding. And they are also able to help with conversations with internet service providers to examine options to close the connectivity gaps in your area, as well as to look into the tower recently sold to a private owner by BC Hydro. So I've got to say that in my meetings with ministers over the years, I was very, very pleased with the work done by Minister Bear and her staff. And the area that they're talking about is the area that we identified as you move into Farrer Cove and up the arm. So we think that there's a chance for real progress on this, and we're looking forward to, they're again going to reach out, and Lorna's available to work with them and very eager to work with them. They're going to work out and do some work, and we look forward to come back at another time, share that with council and share it with our village residents. So Lorna, any thoughts on that? I know you're already working with their staff, aren't you, on this?
Yes, Your Worship, I am. And I also reached out to BC Hydro to find out more information, and I haven't heard back from them either at this time.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like we will get, and BC Hydro has been good in the past, but it sounds like we'll get some more information. So I think there's, I don't think this will be a massive amount of homes that are affected, but it may be real key critical ones. And it was a very good reaction from the minister. Councillor Drake, why don't you come in and ask a couple questions right now?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What surprises me with that presentation is the reference to Hydro selling their tower. Have they tried to relieve themselves of some of their own infrastructure? And is that the impression you took from that? I appreciate you haven't had feedback from them yet.
Yes, that was the impression I had, Lorna. That, and I think we get that from also our person we're engaging with, or who's engaging with us, that Hydro had looked to sell it. So, I mean, I think the minister was very interested in that part too. So I think there's, and Lorna had moved really quickly to get our connection that she and I have worked with to find out some information, because that will help us on the issue coming back in terms of
if I might follow up. Yeah, my impression before had been that the impression I got was that Hydro was refusing to allow, for some reason unstated, the continued operation of cellular services from that tower. This is a little different. This is suggesting Hydro has given up their rights with respect to the tower, obviously for some other business consideration. It strikes me, I mean, are they, I'm just curious, I mean, is Hydro planning to give up all their towers in the province? I mean, it's an interesting business model. I'm not quite sure what would be behind it. I would think once you own that tower, other than charging Hydro for hanging their lines from it, I'm not sure you'd have many revenue sources other than sporting antennas. My guess, and it's only a guess, is that the new private owner has decided to charge some significantly higher fee to the cell companies, and that's why we're getting the queries. But I don't know. It's just a new twist. I wasn't aware of it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think the final chapter on that is being kind of produced right now. So we will get back on that, but we, you know, it is interesting that even with a quick response from the minister, the other things come a bit more slowly. And, you know, you don't always get a quick response from a minister. So anyways, I will move on. I had 2 more items on my report. The next one is regarding the federal election. I just wanted to, and from a Belcarra perspective, we've had a great tradition of working with very good MPs from right across the political spectrum throughout my time and others on council. And I really wanted to thank Nellie Shin for her work as our member of parliament and her willingness to work with and on behalf of our council in our village, and it's much appreciated. And I reached out to talk to her to convey that message on behalf of the village. And we certainly wish her the best in her future plans, and I am fairly confident that they will continue in some way to provide public service. So a real special thank you to her, and a congratulations to Benita Zarilla, the incoming member of parliament. We look forward to working with her to help assist our council and village on things that we identify and look to see as areas where we want assistance. And I'm sure council probably has a couple in mind right now, but we'll give her a couple of weeks to get her feet on the ground. And then we will, as we've done with past MPs, look to hopefully have her come in at her when it fits in to her new duties and to talk with us about how she can help further our interest. So my final one, I'd like to talk about the British Columbia Law Enforcement Memorial. It happened yesterday, Sunday, September 26th, a ceremony at the BC Legislature. And in British Columbia, there's been 129 law enforcement officers, men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice, and their names are engraved on the bastion, which is located on the grounds of the BC Legislature and recorded in the Book of Remembrances. And I'll maybe ask Paula to just put that up, if you could. So at the back, if you're familiar with the legislature, you will see this, and it is there. And yesterday there were mayors, councillors, MLAs, and cabinet ministers and MPs. And to say it was a moving ceremony would be an understatement. It included the families of fallen officers. They were part of the memorial. It included the Honorable Janet Austin, Lieutenant Governor, who in her opening comments spoke directly to the families who were in attendance underneath the tent. And I would say this, that it's pretty sobering at times to be able to understand that some people go to work and they never come home. And as the ceremony was happening, across the street on a roof were two members of an emergency response team that had binoculars and rifles. And so as that was happening, there was protection being given to everybody that was there. And I always think it's not a good sign of our society, but it's a sign of response when it's needed. So after the memorial, a woman approached me and thanked me for coming to the memorial. She told me that Belcarra is a beautiful place. And when she thanked me, I was walking away and it ended. So I asked her, I said, are you connected with this? And she said that she was connected. She was connected to her community because she was a bus driver for the TransLink, and that she had made that connection because she had lost her husband, and at some point she went back to work. And she said she was there with her daughter as she has been every year. And she said to me, Belcarra is a beautiful place. It was so nice for you to come. And each time I drove that bus, I used to look at that lake. And she said, I've never walked around it. And she said, now I have the time and I'm going to do that. And I will probably invite my new husband to do it. And it's a chance to see a beautiful area. So I asked her to be in touch. And I said, if she'd like, I'd be more than willing to walk the lake with her. I shared with her how pleased I was to be able to attend on behalf of the village of Belcarra, the memorial to honor the 129 law enforcement officers and her husband, an RCMP officer who at the time was 26 years old. The night he died trying to assist a person who showed up at the Richmond detachment asking for help. And in answer to his kindness and his help, the person shot him point blank and he died on the spot. She had a young baby who is now grown up. She, like many of the children, came to pay their respects and to support other families. I was honored to be able to represent our village for the ultimate sacrifice of these men and women. And it struck me as quite fitting that the person that would come up had a husband who was in the RCMP, and we are each day protected and well served by RCMP men and women and other law enforcement officers. So I just wanted to share that with you. And it was good to gather with politicians from all stripes who on a day were united by a larger and more noble pursuit. So thank you. Okay, thank you. And Bruce?
Yes, first, thank you for that moving summary of the memorial. It's quite a sobering recognition of the risks that people face and the sacrifices that are made. I just wanted to ask a technical question. I wanted to give a report at some point here on our recent meeting of the Water Committee. I can either do it here or I can do it under a new business. I don't mind either one that's convenient.
Sure. Why don't, if it makes sense, why don't we do it here? And there may be other people who want to add on too, but why don't you go first and then we'll canvass with others. Okay. Does
Thank
that
you.
work for you, Lorna, if we do that here?
Yes, that's perfectly fine. Mhm.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Councilor
it makes
Drake, go
sense to
ahead.
me.
Thank you.
Thank you. It makes sense to me as a project lead for the
Yes.
the safety issue. So I wanted to comment on on a meeting which took place on September the 22nd, which was a meeting of our Water Committee. I would just ask that of staff, we recorded that. We do make those available online, do we not, Lorna?
Yes, we haven't made them available to the public, but we certainly can do that if you would.
Okay, I'd like to ask that, and if anybody has an objection, I'd welcome it when I finish making the presentation. Just because I would encourage people, because this is quite a complex and multifaceted topic, and I don't intend to get into it in detail here, or we will quickly erode the time that I know that Jamie is pleased to see that we're getting moving on at reasonable pace. There's a lot of topics under fire protection and the Water Committee. So I wanted to just give a quick thumbnail summary and perhaps encourage people to look at the full discussion when the opportunity comes up. First, we did discuss the information that we finally received from the District of North Vancouver, which basically modeled a flow to us here in Belcarra of 100 liters a second, which, as everyone who's been following this will appreciate, is substantially more than the 20 odd that we're currently receiving. Basically, cutting a lengthy letter down to its painful summary, for them to consider 100 liters a second, their ballpark estimates, and they are very high level, as was pointed out by members of our committee, comes in at the area of $5.35 million because of the need to upgrade a pump facility in the District of North Vancouver, and also a suggestion that they might have to add larger pipes on about 2.5 kilometers of their existing lines. These, the impact of substantial flows on a system like this are complex because, of course, the lines are interlooped, and so they need to develop models as to how the flow would be impacted at various key points. And that's what this report summarizes for one flow rate and an assumption of a substantive fire taking place simultaneously in the District of North Vancouver. I won't go into detail of that other than to say it's a beginning for discussions with the District of North Vancouver on substantially lower flow rates, which could dramatically improve our circumstances here. Then we ran through, under the direction of Chair Ian Devlin of the Water Committee, a whole series of topics, which again will be available on the video. The most important of which I would suggest is a suggestion that it may well be worth council considering shifting the water committee from the status of a committee with a defined mandate to a advisory board, on the grounds that that could reduce the administrative burden and make some of the communications easier and more flexible. I won't get into the details of that because I want to flag tonight that I will ask to have that put on the agenda of our next meeting, where we will have the discussion. And I expect, and we will at the same time see communications from the chair of the water committee making recommendations as to future steps for council. And so I just wanted to flag tonight, for those that are interested, that the video will shortly be available, that we have received the material from the District of North Vancouver, and there will be a discussion in an upcoming council meeting as to the pros and cons of shifting the committee into the status of an advisory board. And I'd be happy to take any questions. And before I do that, I would also be happy to invite the committee chair, Ian Devlin, or other members of the water committee who might want to comment at this point.
So thank you, Bruce. And Ian, you have your hand up. As chair, I'd like to invite you to speak right now, please. Thank you.
Okay, I just was able to finish with the preparation of a technical brief number 2 from the Water Committee, which I just managed to submit yesterday. And I know it missed this particular meeting, but I'm hoping that that document will be probably discussed next meeting, I would hope. But anyway, I just wanted to summarize what we said at that Water Committee meeting, because I know a lot of busy people in Belcarra may not have an opportunity to sit and watch a 2-hour Zoom meeting. So we summarized the 10 items, and I liken it to little puzzle pieces that are currently on the table. And all these little pieces are, I think, once we get answers from each one of them, it's going to overall give us a pretty good impression of how the village water system could be operated as a dual system, both for potable water and for firefighting. So I'm hoping next meeting, I might be invited to provide a little overview and answer questions from people, but just to whet everybody's appetite, I think they can look forward to the next agenda. I hope Lorna would see fit to put that document on for discussion. Thank you.
I think, Ian, thank you very much. And as you were speaking about the next meeting, Lorna was shaking her head in the affirmative, correct?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Yes. So thank you, Ian.
Okay.
Very much for all your work. Maybe at this point, not that we need them to speak, but I would like to, if I could, does anybody that's on the committee who's on the call, anybody would like to speak right now? Okay. Feel free later. And then we've got Carolina and then Councillor Snell. Sorry, Councillor Clark, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Yeah, I just want to make a couple of comments and a question. I watched the last Water Committee meeting. I was provided the Zoom link, so thank you very much for that. It was I learned a lot every time I sit to listen to the Water Committee meetings. I learned so much. It's so useful. So I would highly recommend for anybody that miss it to be able to log in and watch. And through the chair, my question to Lorna, the question was proposed last meeting about the potential to post those recordings on the website. Could we have that done, please, about the recordings? Because I think it will be really useful. Thank you, Lorna. So for the meetings before in this meeting, I missed the meetings before, and I would love to hear all of them. And also the meeting that I was on the 22nd, I would like to review it again, because there's a few parts that I missed out because the internet was breaking out a bit. So yeah, so it would be really appreciated to have those posted on the website. Thank you. And I would like to once again thank you, the committee, Mayor Ross, all staff for the work. And yeah, it feels like we're getting somewhere, and I'm really, really excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Snell. Go
Yeah,
ahead, please.
thank you. If the last meeting is going up online, would the Water Committee technical brief number 2 be included as a correspondence item in the agenda for the next meeting? It would give the villagers a good opportunity to see the big picture without having to go through a 2-hour Zoom meeting. I see you nodding. So that technical brief number 2 would be included in the correspondence at the next council meeting.
Council meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good point, Councillor Snell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
May I just say something, Your Worship?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Lorna.
Because it was brought up at the Water Committee meeting, we advise that WSP is the engineering firm who were Opus, who were Dayton Knight, and they have a lot of information and familiarity with our water system. And so it has been decided that they will be the engineers on the water system, and Chris Boyd and ISL Engineering will be our engineers for all the other purposes that we require engineers for, such as the pathways, and all the things that, like for TransLink and those types of engineering work. So it's a real good division of our engineering services, I believe.
Good. Thank you very much, Lorna, for that. And I know you provided that to the committee, and I think that's helpful to the community at large. And we're very appreciative of the work that Chris has done and will continue to do with us. And we're also, the point that the WSP are the original people. They have access to some things that will be very beneficial for our community. And I think their presence on the meeting last night was noted by many. So thank you for putting that, your work on that. Okay, I'm going to now go to Joe Elworthy. Joe, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, doing very well, Mayor Ross and Council, and thank you for that. And I guess this is a point of clarification. I just wanted to ask a question on the Mayor's report. By the way, thank you for the Water Committee report. I'll certainly be checking in on that, and also the very, very moving comments on the memorial issue. That was very touching, knowing that we're coming to November the 11th and all of that coming up. It's hugely important. So I just, is this an appropriate time to ask a question on the Mayor's report, particularly on your meeting with the Minister on the tower, or not, Mayor?
I'm absolutely open to that. Yeah.
Good. It's not a long question. It's just a clarification, more brief more than anything. And it's at the last meeting, we had Council had passed a motion appropriately that they were going to look into the possibilities of developing a process, I believe is what they said, pertaining to telecom towers and all of the issues around about it. And very good that you at the municipalities convention that you did get a chance to meet with the minister and bring the issue up. And as you know, there's probably a lot of issues around this one. And those of us who live close to it, of course, it's on our minds. And so my question would be, is the process now that is in the process of being developed, and I think it was handed on to Councillor Drake to proceed. Is that process now in the making? Are we proceeding, and what kind of timelines are we likely looking at in this one? There's a lot of issues. I think we all know that. following the discussion at the last council meeting and following much of the work that we've done since that. So is there some timelines, particularly for all residents here, but particularly residents who may be living close to some of the proposed sites? So do you have any insight into that? Or we can go offline and talk about it some other time if that's more suited to you, Mayor Ross.
No, I think it's appropriate to do, I think it's appropriate to do it here in the public, for sure. I would say this, that our Lorna and her consultant and Bruce, I think, are working together and meshing some things. And I don't want to defer a question, but I think in terms of timeline, Lorna would be better poised to be able to answer. And I hope that's not putting you on the spot. I mean, we don't need an exact date, but just how it's progressing and what's happening. Is that all right, Lorna, in answer to Joe's?
Yes, Your Worship, that's fine. It'll be a little while before we bring it back. It is certainly still, on the books and we're looking at it. But it wasn't high on our priority at this point, but it's still there and being looked at.
Okay, and there.
Thank you. I think, Maris, that's fine. That answers my question. It's not a high priority. It's something we're going through. I think we all know there will be a requirement under federal regulations, etc., for a public consultation process. I think we're all pretty well familiar. So I think that answers my question. Thank you for that, and thank you.
Okay,
for your
thanks very much, Joe. And Sherry, I've got you. Let me just, if I can, for a quick second. Bruce, are you on in regard to Joe's question, or are you on something else?
No, with respect to Joe's question.
Sherry, would you mind if Bruce went ahead and then we came back to you? Is that all right? Okay, thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, just to clarify, and I guess I through the chair, I'm directing it to Lorna. I'm pretty confident, but she can provide informed advice on this. The only concern I would have is that if you don't have a policy in place and you get a formal application, it might put us at a disadvantage. But and Lorna can correct me here if I'm wrong, I don't see any reason why we couldn't get a proposal and then adopt a policy upon getting the proposal, if we happen to get one before we finalize the policy. Is that a fair statement, Lorna, that upon getting an application, we could adopt a policy at that point?
Yes, we would be able to do that. And in the meantime, we are working on a draft policy.
That's great. So I would just reassure Joe that there's no, if the policy looks somewhat like what I'm recommended, we would get the maximum amount of flexibility that I believe the federal government would grant anyone on these sorts of things.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe, for your question. Bruce, thank you for coming in. And Sherry, thank you for being helpful to allow Bruce to answer. And now we're at you. So go ahead, please.
Good. I'm kind of puzzled.
Okay.
The tower that we have our cell phone thing on, our cell phone provider has put that there. The village hasn't put that there. So there's some kind of a dish or something that provides cell phone reception up the arm, right? In North Vancouver and Belcarra.
If I might comment.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But the business structures can get a little bit complex, Sherry. So it might be, for example, the tower did belong to Hydro. It looks like they may have entered into some contract and put it in someone else's hands. So the cell providers will either directly seek approval from someone on where they can mount their antennas, which is what is the case right now on that tower up at the end of the peninsula, which does largely serve Indian Arm, and a number of our residents that are, waterfront only access up the arm would probably dramatically improve their coverage.
Yes.
That is one approach that can be taken. Sometimes there are intermediaries who gain access to the site and then will offer access to the cell companies. And sometimes the cell companies who own a site are forced by the federal government to share it with others. So in any event, all those different scenarios mean that it's cell company technology mounted somewhere that's providing you your cellular coverage, and the business arrangements can vary.
So they may very well arrange another tower on the area on the peninsula. It could be on the side of Seymour Mountain.
Yeah. Yes,
So
they could.
I'm not just sure how it involves the village.
They might, hypothetically, someone might come to the village thinking that our topography and location might be a suitable location for a tower that could provide service up Indian Arm. I'm not saying it would or that it's an optimal opportunity. And we're a very small population base. I mean, these are expensive.
That's
towers.
right.
This is not a natural location, but for some reason, someone may decide they want to do one here. And what we're trying to do is make sure that if that happens, we get as much flexibility as can be secured from the federal legislation to ask questions, suggest amendments, and recommend either putting a tower in, putting it in somewhere else, or not putting it in at all. I think, as I've said before, you don't get a veto, though. In the end, the federal government can do whatever they want.
That's right. But the height of our land isn't too great, which they don't want anyways. So in all likelihood, if they're either going to leave it pretty much in the area that it's in, if the park will let them put a tower, or to go to the side of Seymour Mountain. And so I feel that maybe the village and our workers shouldn't spend too much time on it until it comes to us.
I think we should at least get a policy. My feeling is we should get a policy in place, because at some point someone might propose to put one in. And I agree with you. We're a very small population base. You would serve Belcarra. You could get Deep Cove, but you can get Deep Cove from other locations. You could get a pretty good shot up Indian Arm, maybe better than what you'd get from other locations, but I don't know. I mean, it's an engineering study.
Yeah,
I agree with you that the risk is low. I wouldn't want to spend hundreds of hours, but I would certainly devote some time and put a policy in place that you might need at some future date.
Yeah. Okay, just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bruce, you may want to comment on this, or Lorna, but in a way, we have become involved in this, because as outlined at the last meeting, that person who, at least at some point, was operating out of Manitoba, contacted and then was put in contact with our staff. That person does this for a living, and somehow our little beautiful village showed up on the map. So that's why we're not seeking it, but we're looking to be prepared. Does that make sense, Bruce?
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. And like Sherry, I rather suspect the fact that they were based in Manitoba might have played something into their looking at maps. If they had a topographical map where they were using three-dimensional imagery on Google, they might have concluded they should be looking somewhere else. But stranger things have happened.
Okay, so I'm looking right now. First of all, do we have any of the other leads that want to speak right now? Not seeing any, then I think we can safely, and thank you everybody for your comments and contributions, but we can go to 7.1, I believe, the Village of Belcarra Council Procedure Bylaw number 356, 2004 amendment.
Would you like to take a recess right now, Your Worship, perhaps?
Absolutely, that would be a very good idea. We have a new system. They're letting me know when it's a good time. You know what,
Are we not just that close to the end here that we need to do that, do you think?
Well, here's what I'm going to say, if I could, with the support of the meeting. We are getting close, but we've had an ability to spend more time on things that I didn't particularly predict, and people have been at it since before 5. So if we can take, is that okay? Just so, because the viewing audience has joined us, the staff audience has been working before, in fairness. So why don't we say that? Why don't we go with 8 minutes from now? And we'll see you, and we'll start at 8. Okay? Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Love it. Mhm.
So we're almost ready to start. Another 7 seconds. Precisely. All right, everybody, thank you very much, and thanks for accommodating the break for everybody, and we're ready to move back in. And we are on the item 7.1.
Yes, your worship, this is an amendment to the council procedure bylaw.
Right.
And it is prepared, it's at the adoption stage. And that is, that makes the changes to the public question period.
Okay. All right, so we will get someone to move it and someone to second it, please.
So moved.
Okay, so Councillor Clark moved it. Councillor Wilder seconded it. It's on the
Thank
table. Any discussion? Any discussion from anyone on council? I'm not seeing anyone on council. So we'll move out to the audience. I'm looking at the audience. I'm not seeing anybody indicating. So I'm going to move back to council. And any further discussion on this? seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please raise
Aye.
your hand. Aye.
Aye.
And I would say that the vote carries in the affirmative and it's unanimous. So thank you for your work on that. And we will now move to item 8, correspondence, proclamations, and that we would get a motion that correspondence items 8.1 to 8.9 be received. I've got Councillor Wilder moving it, Councillor Clark seconding it. It's on the floor for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the, and I'm not seeing any from the audience either. So I'm going to move back to council. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion,
Aye.
raise your hand. Aye. And I note that it's carried in the affirmative and it is unanimous. So we have some action items here. 8.1.
Yes, your worship, this letter was received from the Regional District of Mount Waddington. And rather than calculate an amount based on a population as they did for a donation to the rebuild of the village of Lytton, council are suggesting if council wish to approve a donation in the amount of $500.
Okay. And so do we have anybody that would like to move it or move it and second it? Councillor Clark, you would like to move this? Councillor?
I'll second this.
Councillor Wilder seconding it. Okay, so the motion is on the table. Looking for discussion. Councillor Clark, you moved it. Would you like to open up the discussion, please?
No discussion, but if something were to happen to us, then never mind. Thank you.
Okay.
No
that's
discussion
good.
for now. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, and I'm not seeing anybody else on council looking to enter into that. Anybody in the audience would like to make a comment? Checking the board. I'm not seeing anybody, so we'll come back to council and not seeing anybody wishing to discuss. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye. And I note that it is carried in the affirmative and it is unanimous. So thank you. And on to 8.2, that October 2021 be declared as Foster Family Month in the Village of Belcare. So I'm looking for someone to move it and someone to second it. I have Councillor Clark moving, Councillor
I'll second that.
Wilder seconding it. Any discussion from council? Look, not seeing anyone. I'll look to the audience. I don't see anybody in the audience. So I will.
I would actually make a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I've
Please.
often wondered about this, and I know we have our marquee, but I'm wondering if it's something that we could ask Crab to actually put on the marquee so that it's actually out there for everybody to recognize.
Yep.
And I know Mr. Warren's online, and it's him because he's in charge, and he can discuss that with his directors. But I think that would be a really nice thing even if we had it up there for a few days.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent suggestion. Thank you for capturing my attention on that. And Dave, does that sound something that you could convey to your team and get back to Lorna on? Does that work for you? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I'm giving him more work. He probably doesn't like that.
Oh, I'm sure deep down he does, I'm sure. But we won't check tonight.
He's a sweetheart.
Anybody? Okay, anybody in the audience that would like to comment? I'm not seeing anybody. We'll come back to council. Great suggestion, Lisa. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. And I would note that it is carried in the affirmative and it's unanimous. We have some information items. And I think we're good on that. If anybody wanted to lift from the table. I'm not seeing that, but I will make one comment. The one that I was referring to was please vote yes for a safe passing distance law at the UBCM. Came through those two individuals, and I think someone that also that stopped me on the street when I had a respite from the week-long UBCM. So we're on to new business right now. Anybody on council with any new business? Okay. All right. So we're now at public question period. Any questions from the public? Jerry, you look tired. She is. Okay. So not seeing anybody. So what we will do is with the consent, I'll say that public question period has concluded, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn by Councillor Wilder.
Sorry, Your Worship, may I just make a brief announcement?
You actually absolutely can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted people to know that Ellie Sundarini, who is the public works operator and water operator, who is on probation, is no longer working for the village, and that the position will be posted again next week.
Okay. Thank you, Lorna, for conveying that information to everyone. And so I think it would be appropriate now to do a motion to adjourn. I'm looking.
I did that.
Okay, well, we got interrupted. So were you, I didn't catch, you were the, okay, hang on a quick second. We have one question. So in fairness, because we stopped and we went back, we'll go to Sherry.
Hi. Is it possible that in our own staff, we could move that person who's familiar with the village up to this position that's available again?
What I would say this, that let me refer that to Chief Administrative Officer who handles that recruitment and engagement process, and she can provide you with a comment on that. Okay.
Yes, that's a good question, Sherry. And one of the things that we would need to do, you always have to post the position, and then you may take something like that into consideration for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I think that there's certain staff members that would be happy to upgrade, take the classes, and they're sort of familiar with the village and the way we do things. I think it'd be great if we could do it in-house without adding an additional person.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for your thoughts. Much appreciated. Thank you, Sherry. And I'm going to go to Joe with the consent of council. And Joe, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. On that topic, and it's always unfortunate to have to go through a process again, but I think we all know that it's a very difficult time out there. It's very difficult to get qualified people, to retain people, to recruit them. So I think whatever suggestions we look at, we might have to look creatively at solving that problem. So it's a good point by Sherry, and I appreciate her comments on that.
Yep, good. Thank you, Joe. And your comments are correct about, being able to think in a broader way in terms of in this time of engagement and retention. Okay, I'm seeing that Joe's just dropping his hand right now, and the audience is clear. And thank you, Joe, for that comment. Thank you, Sherry. And we'll now go back. Lisa, you had moved the adjournment motion, and we had, who was seconding it, please?
Thanks, Carolina.
Okay, Carolina, so it's on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we'll note that the adjournment was at 9:11. So thank you very much for everybody for your assistance.
Good night, all. Thank you very much.
Yep,
Thanks everybody for coming out.
Good night.
Yep.
Good night.
Nice to see everybody.
Yeah, it was good.
Penny, call me. Good night.
Good night. Take care, everybody.